What's up guys, Rhino here and welcome to my latest FIFA 19 video. This video guys is going to be me going through my experience in the latest FUT Champions Weekend League. So obviously we've just had the second one of the year that's taken place, but for me personally it was actually my first one as I didn't qualify for the very first one of the year. And it was an interesting experience guys. I mean I found out a lot. I feel like I improved a lot at the game as well. Obviously from just playing like division rivals in the past, I didn't feel like I was doing like particularly well. Whether or not it's just the new team which I use for it, or it could just be that I've improved. But it felt a lot nicer to play, and it was a much funner experience. And what I've got for you in this video, guys, is I recorded every single game which I played. And I've just kind of like cut it down, and I've basically got all the goals for you guys. I've not got any of like the highlights that sort of like how I may do for like let's say like a FUT draft or something like that, where I have like some of the different shots and chances that each player has. I've literally just got the goals and that's it, obviously, because else this video would literally go on for days. But just before we jump into the goals, guys, I just want to obviously show you the team which I was using for this weekend. This team played all 30 games, I should say. So obviously in goal we've got Alisson, pretty solid goalkeeper. You can see I played 29. I didn't actually play all 30 because I didn't need to play the last one. But yeah, Alisson. Right back we've got Meunier. Centre backs Marquinhos and Miranda. Left back Telles. Right centre midfield we've got Rabiot. Centre midfield is Fred. Paulinho is in the left centre mid slot. Right forward we've got the player of the month Lucas Moura. Left forward is Felipe Anderson, and up top we have Gabriel Jesus. One thing I should point out as well is that in game, I very rarely use them in this way. At the start of every single game, I would change the formation in game to the 4-1-2-1-2 narrow, where I would end up playing with Jesus on the right of the attack, Lucas on the left, Felipe Anderson in cam. And then, yeah, with like Fred and Paulinho as the wide centre mids and Rabiot holding. And obviously the defence stayed exactly the same. I did have 3 super subs as well of Wilf Zaha, and Herrera and Gonzalo Guedes, who did quite well. They did kind of what I would expect of them. And yeah, I mean, I can sort of go through. I might not go through the tactics and stuff today. I think I'm going to do a separate video for you guys in terms of all like the custom tactics and things like that, which I use, which I felt they served me quite well. But yeah, I'll try and keep this video kind of as short as possible. So let's jump into the goals. So guys, like I said, this is just going to be the goals. I'm not really going to have much more than that in terms of highlights. I'm not going to be showing my opponent's teams or anything like that. I guess I can just sort of say as a heads up that I only came up against an icon once, if that is anything that makes you guys maybe think that you would want to play it a little bit more. I know like a lot of people who may have played FUT Champs in the couple of years in the past have been put off a little bit by it, because obviously you do get at some stage in a year, like when people got a little bit more money, it will literally just be like Icon FC quite frequently. But because it's one of the early weeks in the season, I literally only played against one guy who had Trezeguet. I think it was Prime Trezeguet, but I actually ended up beating that guy. I think he might have rage quit actually. It was one of the easier games. So just goes to show guys that if somebody has an icon, it doesn't necessarily mean that they are gonna, be like a really good FIFA player. They could just have had a little bit of pack luck. And at this stage, yeah, not many people have got them. So that's certainly a reason for you guys to maybe consider actually delving into FUT Champs if you were a little bit hesitant because of kind of bad experiences in the past. But yeah, I want to sort of talk about the team, I guess, first. Obviously, you can see a few of the goals going in. I've got like an overall record there as well, just so you can kind of keep tabs, and it's got the name of each scorer. Obviously, if it's in red, it's against me. If it's in green, it's a goal which I scored. But yeah, I'll kind of start from the back. So obviously in goal we had Alisson. I hadn't actually used him before the weekend league, so his first game was the very first game of the weekend. This is exactly the same for the whole of the team, I suppose. I didn't actually have any practice matches, and yeah, I mean, he's very solid, I have to say. Like he pulls off some pretty good saves. He doesn't really concede too many long shots as well, which is like quite a good thing. I mean, He still conceded a lot, but I would say he saved as a proportion of the amount of long shots he had, because that's literally all people kind of take on. He saved a lot more than he let in, but obviously still letting a few because that's just the way the game is at the moment. The amount of times I kind of felt that he'd save me in matches, and he's a good presence from corners and set pieces as well. I didn't concede many, like that one there, that Boateng goal was one of the very few. I did concede another Bicey like that in one of the later matches from Icardi, I believe it was, but obviously that's not really down to the goalkeeper because that corner was swung quite far out. But yeah, and anything that really came to him, he was solid command, and he was punching them away. Didn't catch many things because I haven't really found many goalkeepers that do kind of catch on this game, which is a bit frustrating. But yeah, he was a very, very good goalkeeper to have. Now, right back, who's my right back? I've got Meunier, haven't I? I've got Meunier. He's okay. He's pretty solid. He's obviously not that quick, which is a little bit frustrating on the offensive side of the game. But he is really tall, and he's got very solid, well-rounded stats, which obviously is quite a good and useful thing to have if you're gonna have a player that's kind of gonna be bombing up and down the pitch, and he can do that because he does have good stamina. So in the defensive situations, especially in this game when the pace doesn't really, it means a bit, but it doesn't mean as much as it did in the past. So you can just kind of shield players out of the game and just ease them off the ball a bit more easily with somebody like him. And obviously crossing being quite a big thing. If he's at the back post and somebody tries to kind of get a leap on him, it's difficult because he is a big boy and he can look after himself. And he popped up with a few goals from set pieces as well, which was really useful with his height. Not many fullbacks can do that. It's usually the centre backs from corners, but yeah, he did chip in with a couple of goals. Can't really say the same for the left back, Alex Telles. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was still really good. I don't think he actually scored a single goal, but he probably got a few more assists, I would say. Most of my attacks that I went down the wings, I actually did go down his side instead of Meunier's, because obviously he had that bit more pace, slightly better technical ability with the dribbling that he kind of possesses, and it just meant that I could really kind of if I was playing quite narrowly with a 4-1-2, so every now and then I could just spray the ball out to the left hand side to him, bomb down the line a bit, gain up a bit of ground down in their half, then just check back, play it inside, and obviously once you've sprinted into their into their kind of almost like their territory, they then obviously kind of their team stretches a little bit, and then if you shift it quickly back inside and work it from one side to the other in a short space of time, spaces do appear, and it's quite useful to use that tactic. It did work quite a lot for me. So he was good. He was still solid at the back. That was actually a goal there for Meunier, as you can see. Quite a nice team goal, that one, actually. I was quite impressed with that goal, and that did actually tip that particular player over the edge, and he rage quit. The centre backs did pretty well as well. We had Marquinhos, who's quite solid. Couldn't really complain with him. Miranda was certainly the standout. Miranda made a lot of very good tackles and blocks and interceptions throughout in pretty much every game. The amount of times I was just, you maybe one goal up, 10-15 minutes to go, they're kind of doing the classic constant pressure, throwing the bodies at you, and the amount of times when Miranda kind of got me out of a difficult situation, or was the player who kind of stood up and was counted for and really kind of took control of the situations really, and just got us out of trouble and allowed us to get up the pitch again and just kind of ease the pressure on ourselves. He was very useful. In the midfield, guys, I will start with the player I played in holding midfield, which was Rabiot. He's pretty good for what he costs. I heard I heard good things about him. People said he was very solid. I think he's only about 2,000 or 3,000 coins. But he's 6'4", which is brilliant in holding midfield. He's got command and presence. He can win headers from goal kicks. Either goal kick really, obviously theirs if they pump it up to the striker, or a lot of the time what I did, because my strikers were quite short, I actually just kind of clipped the goal kick into the midfield and he would just win the flick-ons and head it out to a fullback or something like that, which is quite a useful outlet to have. But he chipped in with a couple of goals as well from corners. Probably not as many as I would have liked to, because sometimes he just didn't seem to be in the box for some reason. Like, whenever he was in there, he was always a threat, but there were plenty of times when, for some reason or another, he just wasn't really there. I mean, it could have been due to maybe I was playing like defensive or something like that at the time, but it just seems to happen a lot more than I would have liked. But yeah, I mean, that's not really something that you can sort of affect too much and without kind of changing your tactics and putting like a lot more bodies in there. But obviously by doing that, you leave yourselves a little bit open at the back. It's a little bit of a risky tactic. So I kind of took what I could get with him in like goal scoring situations. But yeah, like on the ball, he was, you know, nothing kind of spectacular. I would never really go forward and like hit many long shots for him or anything like that, or try and like have him as kind of like the main guy to create an attack. But yeah, I just left that to the other players. But he was still really solid, good ball control. Not one of those like holding midfielders. You get some that are really like big, strong, but then so that they're just like ball winners. But as soon as they have the ball, if you try anything like bigger than like a 5-yard pass, they just ruin it and then end up giving the ball away. And then, you know, all the work they've done to get the ball back, it then just becomes pointless, and they don't tend to have the pace to kind of recover from those kind of mistakes. But with him, he didn't really give the ball away a lot, because he is quite a tidy player for somebody who's so large. So even though he's not rapid, you know, he's not slow. He's just got like a kind of solid pace for a midfielder, but it was enough, and it was good enough. So yeah, very, especially for what he's worth, guys. I would definitely recommend picking him up and trying him out if you haven't already. But I'm sure you guys probably have, because there are literally just so many people raving about him because he has just been so good. We'll go for, which midfielder should I talk about first? We'll do Fred. Why not Fred? Good old Frederick. So he's actually really good, I have to say. I mean, it's one of those cards that when you saw the ratings, when the game, you know, before the game was out and they were talking about the ratings, you saw his card, you thought, oh, he looks like quite a decent, sweaty little player. But I didn't think he'd be worth like massive amounts. But then you see his price, he's sort of like 30k. Blimey, he must be really good. And honestly, he is. He's absolutely insane. He buzzes about the pitch, and that pace in midfield is crucial. It works at an absolute dream. Because he has it, he can win the ball back so much more easily and quickly than other players, and he nips and he gets interceptions. And he's quite strong, to be honest. He is quite strong for somebody of his height. And maybe it's just like his aggression or something like that. I'm not sure. I need to have a look at his kind of like in-game stats really to see if it's like aggression or strength what he's got. But he is quite strong. He can definitely look after himself in there. And he pops up with a few goals as well, because he's got 4-star weak foot. So anytime you might get an opponent who is like sitting in and you're working the ball on the edge of the box a bit, and it's quite useful to be able to kind of like switch onto either foot with him and just take on a long shot. I didn't take on many, because a lot of time I was trying to work it to somebody who'd be a bit more likely to score, like a Gabriel Jesus. But certainly whenever it came to a situation where maybe he had an opportunity that was just too good to turn down, or there was just somebody better placed, there wasn't somebody better placed, I should say. Yeah, he got the job done, really. He was certainly pretty good at dispatching the goals. I mean, he did score a couple of ones where you kind of like curl it into the near post off both feet, which was, yeah, quite, well, they were quite crucial goals, actually, a lot of them at times. You probably see a couple of them in the highlights. But yeah, overall, a very good player, and I would certainly recommend picking him up as well. He's actually one of my favourites out of all the players in the team. Probably my favourite midfielder, I would say, just because of his pace. It is just so useful. Obviously, the other guy in midfield, guys, is Paulinho. He is very, very solid, very, very well-rounded. He probably got the most goals out of the midfielders, because I think it's probably one of those think there's a little bit of a glitch in the game sometimes where the cam swaps with one of the wide midfielders, and whichever one, I can't remember if it's left or right, but he always seems to be popping up in like much higher positions than maybe I thought he would. But whenever he did, I mean, he was dispatching the ball very nicely, and he's a decent threat in the air as well. He's not like really big, but he's just, I think he's got quite good jumping because he always just seems to pop up in like aerial situations and does well. But yeah, like his stats and his energy, again, like it's just the energy in midfield is so crucial. Having that like stamina and that pace in midfield is so crucial. When you go to like the latter stages of like a really kind of tough, stressful FUT Champs game, when like the kind of the intensity of it has been so high, if you got players in midfield that are still kind of obviously not like really fresh, like buzzing about, but they've still kind of got a little bit of an edge on your opponents in midfield, it is so big, it works absolute wonders. As you can see there, guys, that was a long shot from Balotelli, which, well, I was fuming about that one, I have to say. Yeah, that lost me that game. So after 10 matches, the record was 6 wins, 4 defeats, which at the time I wasn't actually that disappointed with it, but in kind of like the grand scheme of things, when I looked back at the weekend as a whole, I actually kind of annoyed about it. I feel like my start kind of let me down. But yeah, like I said, like Paulinho he's pretty good. Again, if you can sort of get him into a team, I know it's difficult because he's in the Chinese Super League, but if you can get him into a team because of his Brazilian links like I did, certainly do it because he's very good. In cam, obviously, like I said, I was playing Felipe Anderson. I was sticking with Lucas and Gabriel Jesus up front. So in cam, Felipe Anderson's pretty good with again, it's a similar thing with like the pace. I love having somebody in cam who can make those runs from deep off the ball and still get away from the defenders, because the issue with a lot of attacking midfielders, when they make those runs, it's fine, like they go almost on the blind side and they kind of steal into a bit of space, but you then have to shoot early because they always get caught up. Whereas if somebody like Felipe Anderson, if he makes those runs on the blind side, gets him behind, just kind of like gets a couple of yards, they ain't really going to catch him a lot of the time. Like, yeah, fair enough if there's like a whole half of the pitch, because we know what the pace is like on this game, but if it's over a couple of yards, they don't really stand a chance, and gives him enough time to get a shot off, and his shooting is pretty decent, to be fair. I mean, like, don't get me wrong, it's not, I wouldn't call him a clinical player. It's not amazing, but it is a good enough, if you get him into a decent situation, like just one of those ones where you sort of think like, yeah, you should definitely hit the target and you got a pretty high chance that you're going to score. Yeah, he'll certainly get the job done. He popped up with a couple of headers as well, which was quite unusual, I have to say. Like, I don't know how he managed to do that, but yeah, a couple of headers in the games, back post ones as well. So that's probably just because he managed to kind of steal a yard, or maybe the fullback, and just kind of had the run on him and jumped in to beat him in the air. But yeah, it was certainly unusual when he did, but I couldn't really complain. Lucas, again, pretty similar to Felipe Anderson. They probably scored a similar amount of goals. Lucas isn't really that clinical either, I have to say. Like, obviously I like to, because he's like an untradeable, obviously doing the player of the month SBC, I want to try and stick with him, but he's not, he's not amazing, but he is a solid investment. I certainly don't regret doing him, because obviously he was so cheap and he is such a good option to have. But I feel like maybe like later in the year he might be one of those players who just be a really useful super sub with all that that pace that he's got off the bench when people are tired. I think that he'd definitely be a lot more useful off the bench maybe than off from the start. And it could have been how I was playing him as well. Like, obviously I was playing him as a striker. He's not really a striker, so he's not exactly supposed to have really good finishing. He might be better out on the right wing, but just like how I was playing with a certain team at this time, that's just how it had to be, really. There was not really anybody else that I wanted to put there. I didn't think Lucas would be better than Felipe Anderson in cam, basically. So yeah, I just stuck with that. Obviously, the other striker, the final guy to talk about, guys, is Gabriel Jesus. So he was just phenomenal. I mean, the boy is he's absolutely spectacular. I cannot rate him highly enough. He's so good. He cost me about 60k. I'm sure his price has probably dropped a little bit by now. Maybe like, obviously not like huge amounts, maybe like 5k, something like that. You can probably pick him up for about 55. But mine had a hunter card on him. So like all my players had like their chemistry styles. So like all my forwards had hunters, all my midfielders had shadows, my fullbacks had shadows, centre backs had anchors, and goalkeeper had gloves. So I had all like kind of what I would consider as like the top chemistry styles on the players to make sure they perform to the maximum. But Gabriel Jesus was just absolutely spectacular. He could do everything. He could shoot off both feet. He could score long shots. He could finish. He was dispatching one-on-ones. He scored. I think he only missed one penalty in it. Like, we'll like exclude shootouts. I know I had 2 shootouts. I think we've seen one of them, which I lost. I don't know if he scored or misses penalties in any of the shootouts, but I just in sort of like in penalties in the 90 minutes, he only had one that was saved. I think he scored like probably, I want to say maybe 5. He scored like 5 penalties, so he was good at that. And his link-up play is really good as well. And he was always making the right runs, like running into channels, stretching the defence, doing everything that I would have wanted, offering that little bit of width at times in a formation that's quite narrow. And he even won like headers from goal kicks. I don't know how. Like he won quite a few headers from goal kicks when I was pumping him up. So for a guy that's like quite short, he did everything for me. And again, he's a player that, like, if you guys can get him, seriously get hold of him, because at this point of the game, what I noticed is it's really difficult to get a striker that is really reliable for like an affordable price. So most of the strikers out there, like especially Premier League, so you know you've got sort of like Lukaku, Aguero, Kane, Firmino, people like that. They're all just sort of like 100k plus. They're really expensive. And for me, my team's literally worth like not even 200k, like just under 200k. So I can't really be spending like 100,000 coins, half my budget, on just a striker, because it means the rest of the team's just going to suffer. So, but obviously I for a while I'd been using some of these strikers that were maybe like 20k, like 20, 30 kind of tops, and they just weren't really consistent enough, weren't getting the job done. And I could never find like that player that was sort of like in between. But finally I obviously realised that Gabriel Jesus was only sort of 60k, which is kind of perfect really, because it's that mix of a striker that's pretty reliable, pretty clinical. It's still not like ridiculously expensive. Like, yeah, I understand that's quite expensive for probably some of you guys, but if you really wanted to get him, it wouldn't take too much time of grinding. Literally just like maybe a week of playing like squad battles and division rivals, and you probably get enough stuff in your packs from that 1 week's worth of rewards and all the match coins that you'd accumulate to be able to afford something like that. So yeah, certainly for you guys out there, if you're looking for a striker, if you're really struggling for that kind of aspect of your team and you can't afford like one of the really big boys, I would certainly recommend picking him up, because he was absolutely superb in the weekend league. I think he scored like 17 goals, I think. Like 17 goals in 29 games. Usually I would look at that and say that's not really that impressive, but what you got to remember is that every single one of those games is weekend league. It's all FUT champs. So many games were literally like 2-1 or 1-0 or 1-1. They were very low scoring until maybe like towards the end, I would say, when I started to get a bit tired. Wasn't really defending that well and the games became a bit more open. But when I was like fully focused, I was making the games as tight as possible and just taking my chances. And he was so reliable for if I wanted to play like slightly more, I wouldn't say like defensive, because I never started on defense. I always start on balance, and I'd always kind of, there were games when I would, to be honest, at the start it would just be all me attacking. But I would say probably that I was quite conservative in a lot of the games. It's so good to know in the back of your mind that you've got a player like him that if he gets one chance, you know, there's a pretty high possibility that he's going to take it, and he's going to give you a crucial goal, which could maybe either win you the game or maybe steal extra time or shootout or something like that. So yeah, very, very good player to have. So that's kind of like the team, guys, but I suppose like in terms of style, how I played as well, how I kind of use these players in the right way. Like I said, it's a very narrow formation of 4-2-1-2. So if you wanted to play it, then what the kind of like the thing I'd recommend for you guys to do is obviously like use it to its strengths. Play through this centre. Obviously, it's all about nice, quick passing, like 1-2s, things like that. You can't always just go straight forward. You need to, like, if you play a couple balls like into striker's feet forward, then just play it back, a few more balls sideways, forward, back. But every time, obviously, you need to try and make it so that like the forward passes are of like a greater distance than the backward passes. So you are actually like covering ground and making your way out the pitch. But yeah, it's not one of those formations you can't literally just steam forward all in one swoop. You do need to kind of go back to go forward, but as long as you're patient and you know how to work the spaces, and you can like spot the runs of the players and you get used to what runs they make and the patterns of play, it is really, really effective, and it's really difficult to defend for the opponent, especially if they're playing a formation that doesn't have like a holding midfielder. Yeah, they can really struggle, especially with a cam in there, because you get into so many spaces. But the other thing as well is obviously sometimes if, say, like your opponent is playing another formation that's got a lot of bodies in midfield, it can get really tight and congested in the centre of the park. So what I have as one of my instructions, I have actually my fullbacks are told to overlap. I don't have it on get forward while attacking or like stay forward or whatever the setting's called. I still have it on balance, but I tell them to overlap so that they're still there when they need to defend. They're not like just flying forward willy-nilly like headless chickens, but they're still, if they realise the game's getting a bit congested and there's a little bit of space on the flanks, then they will just make that run, give you that option. Like I was saying with Tellez, he'll just give you that option to go down the outside, almost just like carry a team up the pitch a bit, and then it just creates a bit more space in the midfield because it sucks players out, it drags them over, and then if you move the ball quick enough, you can then move the ball into the centre and create kind of goal scoring opportunities for yourself. So yeah, that's kind of the main way to play, but definitely when you defend, you need to try and keep it as congested as possible, I'd say, in the centre, but not, obviously just be wary of crosses and stuff. But yeah, it's just common sense really, guys, with like the balance in terms of defending, how like wide you want the team, and that's just one of those things that if you just keep using the formation, you will just kind of get used to it and you will pick it up and you'll realise like maybe where you're going wrong, what things you're doing right. But yeah, that's pretty much what I can say about the team itself. I just want to talk about the weekend league in general as well, guys, because obviously it has changed a little bit in comparison to previous years. So obviously in the past it was 40 games. People kicked off. I used to moan a lot myself. It was just really, really stressful, to be honest. Like, it was just not an enjoyable experience, especially if you didn't have the weekends free. Like, it was hard enough. Like, on the odd occasion, I did have maybe nearly a whole weekend free to play it, and even then, I found it really difficult to get all 40 games in. So let alone when you've got other commitments, which I know most people do who play FIFA like this. There's a lot of people that can't really dedicate an entire weekend to it, and even people that don't have other commitments. Do you really want to be playing it that much? I know, yeah, FIFA's fun. It's great. People enjoy playing it, but I don't think people enjoy playing it that much. And yeah, that obviously, everybody had that same opinion, and eventually it all kind of I guess the message got to EA, and it all came together nicely, and they decided to drop it to 30 games, which is honestly worked wonders, because for me, the weekend league has actually been the funnest thing I've played on this game, which is mad, to be honest. It's absolutely ridiculous. On previous years, it was the thing that you just dreaded. You play it because you wanted the rewards, and you kind of you played it because you wanted to test yourself and see what, if you could beat your record of how many wins you had. But in general, it was one of those things that you just used to be so nervous going into every game because you knew that the stakes were so high for every single game that like you just needed to win. And like any game that, you know, it's one of those things like if you lost a game, then it would just make it even more stressful because you kind of knew that you wouldn't get all the games in, so you had like less games than maybe you should have to get the reward. So it made like the significance of every win, I would say, if that's the right word, the significance of every win just made it so much more greater. But this year, like I would say that they're obviously still pretty significant, but it's just nice to be able to kind of like spread your games out and just make it a little bit easier for yourself, a little bit more stressful. Like if you do lose a game, you can just take a little break, come back to it, and you've not kind of given up like valuable time. But yeah, certainly the stress thing for me was just like it was so chilled. I just enjoyed it a lot more, and I don't know if that was just because like, you know, the opponents, I'm not sure. There's another thing I wanted to say about how like the qualification process now, it's obviously a little bit easier to get in, so you don't have to win like 4 games in a row in a knockout tournament, or you know, you don't have to like stay in Division 1, like get promoted to Division 1 in season, anything like that. It's much more easier to qualify. It doesn't actually come down to like if you're good enough, it comes down to if you play the game enough now. In Division Rivals, obviously you just need to literally just accumulate enough, like 2,000 FUT Champions points, which even if you literally just lost every single game, if you played enough, then you would get in. So that does kind of mean that, yeah, you do come up against a couple of people who you do sort of look at and think, I mean, really, are you actually FUT champs? You just wouldn't even dream of coming up against somebody that easy to beat in FUT champs last year or the year before. But yeah, I think that does help in terms of like just make it a little bit less stressful, because it does mean that every now and then you get like a slightly nicer game, I would say. But at the same time, it's careful not to. You have to be careful not to become kind of like complacent and play those games almost like too laid back. Because I feel like, I wouldn't say like I was too laid back in some games, but I wasn't really clinical enough as what I maybe would have been if I was playing against like a top opponent. Like I'm always fully focused for every single game because it's FUT champs and you know how much every game means. But like, there are sometimes some games where I was just like, I mean, Jesus, like how have I not kind of like put this guy to bed, and then you end up losing the game in like extra time or something like that, which losing by the odd goal. And then it just puts a bit more pressure on when you do actually come up against somebody who is a bit better and is going to be a lot harder to beat. So certainly, I definitely like the fact that there's open to more people. I think it's better. And it doesn't really impact EA in terms of their live events and stuff like that, because obviously they've made the change with that, how they've got they're going to have basically like a league table or something, I believe. I don't really look into it too much because I'm not good enough to even go to one of those things. Just doesn't really bother me too much. But I think like, all I know is that you have to get like 27 wins in any single weekend league, and then basically that, provided you've signed up to basically put yourself forward to be at a live event, it then gains you kind of like FUT champs verification, means you're verified to go to a live event, and then your performances throughout the season at live events and in like future weekend leagues gets you points on like a league table, and then at the end of the year it's the top such and such players in the league then go to the main like EA World Cup live event thing to decide who's like the best FIFA 19 player. But yeah, like I said, I don't really kind of like, that's kind of like how I understood it when I first saw it, just reading over it briefly. But yeah, I don't know for definite, just because I haven't really read into it too much. I don't think I'm going to bother kind of like putting my name forward. Like yeah, it's a bit, I'd say it's a bit easier this year on FUT champs, but I don't think I can get 27 wins. I mean, that's a little bit out of my reach, I would say. But certainly, yeah, you guys, like if you think you can do that, then obviously put your name forward, and then you can get yourself verified. And who knows, we might be watching you on Twitch or something like that. But yeah, like I said, this stress aspect, guys, it's certainly a lot better, and because like the level of opponent is a bit easier, and certainly at this stage as well, guys, like the level of team that you come up against isn't really as good. So if you do come up against somebody who isn't really like hugely greater in ability than you, they don't always have like a much better team, so the chances are you can win. Like so many times last year, which used to really frustrate me, I play against so many people who I just, you know, you're sat there, you're like, you're no better than me. You know, you're the same kind of level or you are worse, but they just beat you because they've got like 5 icons, and like with icons, the boys just seem to kind of like always attract them like a magnet. Everything would just fall the way of the icon, and not having one just, I felt like it put me at such a major disadvantage. And when I finally got on because of the icon SBC, I felt like it helped me. But the problem was I had a left back. I had Zanetti, like baby Zanetti, and didn't really obviously help me in like goal scoring areas. So never did I really get I didn't get as many kind of like rebound goals as I felt like my opponents were getting, just because they had an icon. But obviously that's just like a conspiracy which I put forward. There is no kind of truth in that. Not many people seem to consider it as well, but that is just something that one of my little pets I had really last year. So I was quite pleased not to go up against many icons in this particular weekend, but I'm sure that will change. I'm sure I'll be greeted by an R9 very soon. Hopefully not this weekend, as I will be playing again. But you know, I will be very disappointed if I go up against R9 or like Ronaldinho, Pele. It will be a bit of a disappointment. Obviously, you can see, guys, by this point, overall record not doing too badly. 15 wins, 8 defeats. It was better. I was at one point, I'm pretty sure, like I think it was like 11 wins, 5 defeats, 11 wins, 6 defeats, something like that, which is pretty good. Like obviously after the first 10 games, I had 6 wins, 4 defeats, which was okay. I look back and I kind of wish I had better. After that, I played 5 more games, and I actually won 4 out of the 5. The only one I lost was the penalty shootout game, which was quite useful for me because it got me back in really in terms of like a shout for getting like a higher rank, maybe like a gold 1. I think like elite was always kind of out of my reach because 23 wins for elite, and obviously losing 4 in your first 10 against so-called easier opponents because of how the rankings were and the matchmaking. You know, I was always going to lose more than 3 games in my last 20, so elite was going to be out of my reach. But I thought there was a possibility that I could maybe get gold 1, but yeah, like gold 2 was definitely kind of like the bare minimum that I was looking for. 17 wins. As you can see, they're like 15 wins, 8 defeats. I mean, what's that like? That's 7 games left just to get 2 wins to get gold 2. So that's certainly within reach. But as you can see, this particular game, we're like 3-1 down, and that goal really annoyed me. I have to say, look at the time, like 49 minutes. It was only +3. I mean, does the ref not know we have a half time? It's like he just started playing the second half in the middle of the first half and just allowed them to kill the game off really. From that point going into the second half, I was just done. But so the record became like 15-9. Still had like 6 games to try and pick up 2 wins, and I did make a good start in the next game to give myself a big opportunity. But yeah, guys, like I can't really like penalty shootouts. If you can get the luck in those, I cannot stress how useful that will be. I only had 2 in my entire weekend, and I lost 1 and I won 1. So I was lucky or unlucky. Like I had 50-50, which is fair enough. Like that's kind of what you kind of say you can play with that. But if you can have like 2 or 3 shootouts and win them all, it's gonna make a massive impact on your overall rating, or your overall record, I should say. It's really gonna help you. But just obviously the final thing to kind of touch on, guys, is what I said about the form and the matchmaking. It's a little bit different Well, I mean, actually, I don't know if it's different. I mean, it might just be that we know a bit more about it. It might have always been like this, but finally they did actually kind of inform us of how it works this year. And that is that basically it kind of like, it's the difference between how many games you've won and how many you've lost. So you can see there, overall record, 15 wins, 9 defeats. So that means that my form is 6 or +6 because I've won 6 more games than I've lost. And I'm not sure exactly what kind of like leeway it is, but I think we'll say it's like 5 either side. 5 sounds kind of like realistic. That's what I like to think it is. It could be higher. It could be more of a difference, but I wouldn't think that would be particularly clever on EA's part because I still wouldn't really be like that much point doing it. So basically, if you have a form of +6, you can therefore play against anybody that's got a form of 5 like lower or 5 higher, or like anywhere in between. So I could play against somebody who's got only a form of +1, so they could literally be like 1 win, no defeats. It could be something like that, or it could be somebody that's like 15 wins, 14 defeats. So somebody with +1, or it could swing the other way and you could play against somebody with a form of like +11, which obviously is quite unfortunate. You know, you could literally come up against somebody who's like 11-0, or you could come up against somebody who's like 12-1 or 13-2, something like that. Like somebody who's got a pretty solid record, and somebody who's looking like they're probably going to be edging towards like at least elite, and maybe even going for like top 100. So it's good that we know about that, but I don't know if that was in the game last year, if that was how it worked. But yeah, it's always good to know, and it does help because in my situation where I was at when I needed like 2 wins from 7 games, my form was obviously a bit higher, but I knew that if I lost a couple of games, then I'd start up against like slightly easier opponents, and that those 2 wins would come eventually. So it means that you don't get as angry, because like for me, I lost in this kind of like these latter games. I lost 2 games on the spin, and that was the only time I actually lost back-to-back games. Apart from that, it's always like win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game, or like win a couple of games in a row, then lose a game, win a game, something like that. Like it was never ever back-to-back losses until towards the end when I was coming against the much harder opponents. And it just means that when you lose those couple of games and you start to think, oh god, like no, it's slipping away now. Like I had 7 chances, now I've only got like 4 or something like that. Like, you know that you'll get the games. You will get those games eventually, because your form is going to go down and you're going to come up against people with lower form, and it's just going to give you a much higher chance of achieving what you want to achieve eventually. And also I think it helps at the start as well, because I looked at it originally when I had 6 wins out of 10 matches, and I thought, oh, that's not too bad. But I look at it now and I realise that was when I was playing against the players that were much easier than what I played against in the latter stages of the weekend. And I really needed to take the victories there, because I left myself with too much work to do and too much of a disadvantage going into the final kind of set of games. So if you can get yourself, after the first 10 games, you can get yourself like 8 or 9 wins, only a couple of defeats, it's going to stand you in pretty good stead going into the rest of the weekend. It just means that when you do come up against those much tougher opponents towards the end, you can you've got a little bit of room for error. You can afford to take a couple of losses. I ended up in this situation here, guys, where I had 4 games left and I needed 1 for gold 2, and I needed 4 wins, so 4 wins out of 4 for gold 1, which obviously meant I had to literally go faultless right at the end against opponents which were much harder. But if I picked up a couple of wins early on against the easier opponents, then I would have had room for like 1 or 2 defeats in this stage, and it would have been a lot easier for me to get it. And I may have done it in the end, but I ended up in a situation where there was actually no point in me playing my 30th game. I only played 29 because I couldn't. It wouldn't have made a difference. Like I couldn't have actually gone up a rank by winning that last game. But you want to be in that situation where, because you've picked up 1 or 2 extra wins earlier on in the weekend, you can actually then
that game actually becomes of a little bit worth. And even if it was, say you're on like 21 wins, you have one game left, and so gold 1's 20, elite 3's 23. So you get up to 22, you can't go up a rank. But for me, if I was on that many wins, I would still go for it, because that would for me probably be my best ever weekend league performance. I'd want to see how I'd get on, and I'd be really, really pleased if I managed to get 22 wins. So I would actually play that game, and it'd be not like a reason to in terms of rewards, but just like in a personal pride kind of sense, there'd be a reason. So yeah, I think the whole form thing and how they've kind of they've informed us and announced how it works, I think that definitely helps a lot. But yeah, like it's just going to be a case of, obviously I've had my performance this weekend. I have to see how I get on in like upcoming weekends. I've learned a lot of lessons out of this particular weekend, and I'm sure you guys probably have if you played, or maybe like the first week you played, which is obviously another thing for me. I was maybe like at a little bit of a disadvantage to some of the people I play against, because they might have played in the first weekend and they might have like known a few things that I didn't. Like for example, in my first game, I lost in the 92nd minute because I got broke on, because I didn't put it onto ultra defensive. It was naive of me. Like I was too focused on trying to go for the victory myself, when I should have just taken it to extra time and then kind of gone from there. I didn't realise how effective ultra defensive is anyway, or like defensive. I still created a lot of chances, so I'm a lot more likely to do that now than what I was at the start. So that was obviously one game down the drain. Yeah, so little things like that I will obviously do better in the next one. And I'm sure you guys probably feel the same. Like, just a bit of a learning curve really, and also the form, and knowing like how many games you need to try and win in the early stages certainly helps. It's all just like about taking lessons really as you go along to try and improve your situation. We're nearly at the end of the goals now, guys. So you see the overall record is currently sat at 17 wins, 10 victories. So I had achieved gold 2 with that penalty shootout win, which was extremely stressful because I did actually miss my first 3 penalties, or they were all saved. But luckily I did save 2 of my opponent's first 3 penalties, so it was only 1-0 and I ended up winning the shootout. Go into this game, obviously this one I can still achieve gold 1. This is obviously, like I said, I had 4 games, let's win all 4. So I won the shootout, which then left me with 3 games needed. 2-0 up in this game. He does pull a goal back through Daniel Vass with this goal here. But this is actually how this game finishes. So I then had 2 games left, needed 2 wins to get gold 1. And you sort of, you kind of dare to dream a little bit, and you think, God, like surely not. Obviously, yeah, 18 and 10. But it's still in the back of my mind, I did kind of think like, I didn't really win like 4 games in a row at any stage of the weekend. And to do it now, when essentially the opponent should be even harder, is probably not that likely to happen. You do get a couple of rage quits, but this guy certainly wasn't going to rage quit because he just destroyed me. I couldn't live with Vardy for some reason. I never can when he plays against me. He's just too quick. He's like ridiculously clinical for some reason. And he did end up scoring another goal with like Genie Wijnaldum as well. But yeah, this obviously a loss. So it meant that my overall record in the end, guys, for this weekend was 18 wins and 11 defeats and 1 game not played because I didn't need to. But yeah, that's pretty much it really. Obviously I'll kind of finish it up in a sec, and I'll give you a little confirmation of my record and what rewards I'll be getting. I won't be doing the rewards in this particular video as they're not out yet. I just wanted to get this out there for you guys just to show you how my weekend league did go. Alright guys, so here you can see it's kind of confirmation of my rewards and where I finished. So as you see on the left hand side, it's got me in gold 2. If you look at like the main kind of center panel, obviously it's got the massive gold 2 crescent. It's got 18 out of 20, so I finished 18 wins. And down the right hand side you got the rewards which I've earned as well. So I get 45,000 coins, a rare gold pack, which is obviously a 25k pack, 2 rare mega packs, which is 2 of the 55k packs. But the big thing for me, guys, is I'm going to be getting 2 of the players pick special items. And the big thing as well is that there's no rating limit on them. So it's not like with some of the lower ranks in like maybe like silver 3, something like that, where it's a limit of like an 84 overall. I could literally get anybody in these. Now, I don't know which players these could possibly be, because the team of the week has obviously not been announced yet, because that'll be coming out on Wednesday. So I'll have to have a look at that and see what the possible players are that I could get, but that's all going to be from performances in the international break, so it could be a little bit different to what the team of the week normally is. I do also get 2,000 of the Champions qualification points, which basically means that I've qualified for next weekend, essentially, because it's 2,000 to qualify, isn't it? Even though I do already have like 712 of them. I think they'll probably end up going to waste, which is a little bit unfortunate, but to be honest, it doesn't really bother me too much, because it is so easy to get qualification now, because you get, if you look at Silver 3, is it Silver 2? Which one is it? It's Silver 1. Yeah, Silver 1, 11 wins, yeah. It's 2,000 Champions points there, 11 wins, so it's really not difficult to get that. Even at like Silver 2, Silver 3, you still get like 1,000, so you're already like halfway there if you literally just get 6 wins. So it's really easy to qualify now, guys, once you've kind of got into one weekend league, so that's obviously a good thing to get that. But yeah, the player picks are the main things. Obviously, I can't really do the rewards for you now in this one, but I will have a video for them as soon as they're available to me. But that's obviously how my weekend league went, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you did, then feel free to leave a like and comment just to let me know how yours like went and how you kind of felt about it all as like a new experience. And maybe like your previous one as well, if that went a little bit better maybe and you want to talk about that one instead. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that, guys. Obviously, if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, then you can do that if you want to keep up to date with all my latest FUT 19 content. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.